Hello, everybody. We are live. Hello, Barbara. How are you? How is everybody? I'm hoping they can hear me okay. Hello, going live. Very excited. Going live with Fred Stoller. Let's see what we got here. Hello, Gil in England. Oh, there is Fred. Hello, Fred.
Dressed up as you, I'm sorry.
Fred, you look great. It's so good to see you. And here's my thought. So I'm going to, just for people who haven't seen it before, I'm Tom Caldabiano. I was a writer on Everett Raymond for all 9 years. I have Everett Raymond 360. I took 30,000 behind the scenes photos, and I try and share it with these super fans. And Fred, who is a very talented stand-up and actor, probably has so much good material and stuff to share that I'm going to say up front, Fred, I hope you can join us again, because I think we're going to run out of time. Okay? Because
I'll tell the story in a bit where I could suck so bad they go, wait, maybe I shouldn't have said that. But
oh, maybe I should hold that offer till halfway through. You're right. So, Fred, I want to go back a little bit because I didn't even realize, or I forgot, you worked on Seinfeld, and a lot of times, now a lot of the people watching don't necessarily love Seinfeld. I love Seinfeld, and I think it's just the coolest show. But when some people were asking specifically about how the writing works, etc., I knew, I heard stories from Scrovan, and you. Tell me about your book working on Seinfeld.
Do a little plug on my Kindle single, my Seinfeld year.
Great. So folks, so I would say this, Fred, we have an international audience here. Some people love Seinfeld, the United States people, and some people in Chechnya, in Russia, don't even know what Seinfeld is. So, and some people could care less about the writing process and are just happy to see you as Cousin Gerard showing up, So we have to balance, various interests. So I don't want to get into Seinfeld writing yet. Let's just talk about your early days of stand-up and your encounters with Raymond and how you ended up on Everett Raymond, because I will share a story with you that Ray told me that I don't know if you know.
I'll probably repeat it. Ray told me.
Okay.
Basically, I'm an old guy. Well, Raymond's a year older than me, but he may have started a little later than me. I had a false start in 75. Then in 1978, I passed auditions at the Improvisation Comedy Club, and I moved to LA in 88. So I think Ray started a little bit later, but the story I know Ray's told is I once did my act at the comic strip, and I scooted out to do another set. Ray came in, was hanging out, and he was getting complimented for his good set at the comic strip when he hadn't gone on yet. And my exaggeration story is a shtick. And one of them went home with him thinking it was Ray, which was, but so I bumped into him, but I did not have too many encounters. I mean, you're his good friend from the New York scene. I did mostly catch, but I moved to LA in 88. So was he doing mostly the improv before he moved?
So just for people watching, there's a New York scene of the improv and the comic strip and Catch a Rising Star comedy clubs. So when Ray started in 1987, Fred was already on his way out.
That's why we didn't have too many encounters, because he was around my last year in New York. And then, yes, and I came here in 88. Here's a little Raymond thing. I'm sure, actually, I'll plug my stuff later, but I have a little trivia thing. And I bumped into Raymond one day. He was hanging out. I was on the Radford lot. I used to work there a lot. That's where Seinfeld was filmed, Roseanne, Just Shoot Me. And he was hanging out with Andy Dick and Dave Foley. And a lot of trivia, people may not know this, but he was originally cast in the Joe Rogan part of News Radio. And it didn't work out, but it worked out for Ray. So I very cordial, said hello to him. So what happened was, excuse me, when Raymond was on the show, the pressure to be on, people were bugging me. You should be on that show. It's so right for you. I go, yeah, okay. How does that work? To say I should be on it. It's almost the pressure I get with Curb Your Enthusiasm now. You'd be perfect. So the pressure to be on it, so I had this audition, and you may remember, well, you do remember, but again, for people who don't know, it was shot on the Warner Brothers lot where they did Friends, so many shows. It's a big, massive lot. But I remember they did Friends there, Suddenly Susan I was on, some other shows. So, my tripod fell, but I'm okay. So I guess it was early in the, before Raymond was a big hit, and it was in the casting office wasn't where it ended up. It was some like bungalow, some weird place. And there was a big cattle call audition. A cattle call is showbiz terms where many, many actors. I bumped into Tom Kenny. And the part I was auditioning for was people at a reunion, and it went to Brian Posehn got the part, and I guess Bob Odenkirk were buddies at a reunion or something. We got a helicopter. I'll shut the window. So so what happened was I went to audition, and it was for Ray himself. Hey, Ray, Lou Schneider, who I'm sure you, a writer, and Phil Rosenthal. And I guess I remember something, hey, and they make a reference to a Bad Company song. I remember that. And they were laughing because they were perking up in their seat. He says, now, the way you say now, Raymond, what? And Ray is from Queens. I'm from Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, where I went to the same high school as Larry David. He's older than me. So Steve Scrovan, a very good friend of mine from the 80s comedy scene, was like you, a writer-producer on All 9 Years. And I talked to him. He goes, you didn't get it, but if there's ever a part as the cousin, you'll get it. Yeah, whatever. So that kind of started it. And many people don't know this. Well, I mean, big Raymond fans, that my first time on Raymond wasn't Cousin Gerard. I actually had all my lines cut. And I'm plugging my book. Maybe we'll have you back, The Life of a Perennial TV Guest Star, where you were nice enough to
Hold that up, Fred. Hold that up, yep. Maybe we'll have you back. Now, for those of you watching, it's flipped, but it's the picture of Fred. And then go ahead to the inside, Fred, a couple of photos from, that's a show. That's a couple of photos.
And this one of me and Ray. Thank you, Tom.
Yep. Looking good. So
there's a chapter in it where I talk about, the chapter's called, I forgot, Why Doesn't Raymond Love Me? Because my first time on it, I told my mother I'm going to be on Everybody Loves Raymond. I wasn't on it. And I didn't get the memo, as some comedian would say, that I was cut. So it was, I get confused. It was not a reenactment, it was a flashback, I think, of the first Ray and Deborah's wedding. Then I did another one. I get confused. One was a renewal of the wedding. So I remember I played the accordion. I was going to throw up. They had me with an accordion, and I got cut. So bummer. And for people ask me this a lot. If you get cut, do you still get paid? Yes, you do, because you were there for the work. Okay, so then what happened was, all right, I got cut, bummer. But then I guess excuse me, at the time, writer's assistants, they pitched a show. They already had the idea of a cousin. Okay, and Ray used to not like that I look like an unhealthy version of him. And so I think these two writers, I forgot their name, Mike Hockham, I can't pronounce his name, and Jason, sorry.
Mike Hockham and Jason Gellis. Mike Hockham and Jason Gellis.
they were not quite on staff as writers, but they had the insight to pitch a story. So my first time speaking was the Cousin Gerard episode, and I made jokes. I remember going, I'm kind of, because you never know as a guest star actor. That's what this book is about, walking on eggshells. You could get written out after a table read at a run through. And I was joking, going, I'm usually not a confident guy, but I'm pretty sure I won't get cut from this one because I was in so many scenes. So I'm glad those two guys wrote the Cousin Gerard.
And Fred, when you got the first call, because what Fred was talking about is people going, you'd be perfect on the show. You'd be perfect. And you as the performer are like, yeah, I would. And I have zero control and zero say. So from the outside, you're like, I agree, but I don't control who's in the show. So when you get that first call that we want you to come in, Fred, to be Ray's cousin, were you like, oh, this is great? Like Scrovan, I believe him. It's all.
Well, yeah, I still was a big cattle call, as I said. A lot of character actors, like I said, Tom Kenny, who ended up being SpongeBob, but people like, it was weirdos, all the weird, like a guy, Jim Turner, you may not know, but he was, I'm just thinking of people, he was, Arliss, but a weird looking guy. So there's no should be's. There's a lot of times like, oh, this is going to go because da-da-da. It doesn't happen. I mean, there was a thing I was supposed to be involved in. This is Judd Apatow and this is HBO. You can't go. Yes, so early on, I knew, like in my career, most of the parts I got, people asked for me. So I don't fit into puzzles. So the pressure was on that, hey, I'm perfect for it. So yes, so it was on, but yes, a lot of shoulds. I learned shoulds don't work in this world of this business.
I think only because there's a lot of actors who will write comments about what do you recommend and what, etc. When we, if you're a writer, because I've been on both sides, I've been rejected a tremendous amount of times, and then I've been where you're a producer writer, and when you're the writer of the script, all you want is for the person to hit a home run. So nobody is, for the most part, nobody is sitting there going, I don't like Fred. Fred, he cut in line once at lunchtime on me when I was, at the improv, whatever. I'm just making it up. But
right.
If the guy hits a home run, you look good. So if Fred Stoller is hysterical, he's got the job. But you don't know that Ray has someone else that he goes, I kind of want you don't know anything that's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Brian Posehn may be more visually funny or just a sidekick, but on a different scale, the way it worked out that Ray got fired from News Radio, it worked out that I wasn't the guy in the reunion scene that I got to be Cousin Gerard. So maybe, again, yes. So I didn't take it personally. I'm thinking, well, maybe, they thought he's so right for the cousin that you save it for that if it happens or something. I don't know. But yes, I'm glad I didn't get the guy at the reunion. But yeah.
Well, let me just talk a little about that for people. He's talking about the high school reunion show. Brian Posehn is like this big, goofy character actor. And Bob Odenkirk, who ended up being in Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, was the other friend at the high school. Now, I don't know that we ever had them back. You were back. How many episodes of Raymond did you end up doing?
It's hard to say because there are two parts, only about 7 or 8, but then there was I'm getting to that age. Robert's wedding was a 2-parter. Does that count as 2 episodes? So
yes.
It seems like I was in it more than I was. I actually was cut at a table read where, this is weird because what people, I'm sure you explained this, the way the show works is the first day you have a table read where you sit around and read the script. And as a guest star actor, I'm not plugging that I'm making money, but I'm referring to you're walking on eggshells. That a lot of shows, if you flub a line or don't hit it out of the park, you're replaced at the table read. So it's like you're auditioning 5 times during the week. You have the table read, then you have run-throughs. The most harrowing is the network run-through. That's when I'm more nervous at that than tape night. Because tape night, you know you made it that far. They like what you do. You're good. It's up to the audience to approve of you. But the network run-through, all the people, the suits are taking notes. And so I'm most relaxed after the table run. I mean, the network run-through. So, okay. So what I'm saying is about... what the hell am I saying? I forgot.
Well, here, let me help you out though, Fred. What Fred's talking about is
after a run through.
Yeah, if it's 5 days, if it's a 5-day process, what Fred is talking about is at first he auditions, and it ends up being for the casting director, Lisa Miller Katz in this case, and then he comes in, they narrow it down, then he, along with potentially 10 other Fred Stoller likes, come in and read for Phil, whoever wrote the episode, and maybe one other person. So let's say he nails it, and we go, this is genius. This is comedic genius. Now, the first day of the table read, I don't want to use Fred as an example because it didn't happen to him, but the actor that we thought was amazing at the audition, at the table read, they sit there and we all go, they're terrible. They're terrible. So then Phil, in this case, has to go, we have to recast. And they have to go, just like happened to Ray on news radio, we're going to go a different way, which means you're fired. And so then you have a run through the next day with us, with the producers. And what Fred's talking about, the pinnacle is the network executives come in to watch a run through, and they have the most power. So if they go, can I tell you something? Fred Stoller is terrible. And even if Phil said, God, I thought he was funny. And they're like, no, the CEO of CBS has someone else they really want to see in this role. Then all of a sudden that person's gone. Now, that didn't happen with Fred. Fred hit a home run and we were like, okay, what's another story with Fred? What's another story with Fred? Because you're always looking for stories to try and do it. And by the way, even Doris Roberts would come up to us at the craft service and go, Tom, are you working on my Emmy episode? So even a cast regular wants to be in every episode, but it doesn't, you can't just keep cranking out. You can't have Cousin Gerard being in 25 episodes because then it's like, well, then he's a cast regular. But that's what Fred's talking about, that you auditioned 5 times. Your head is potentially on the chopping block. By the time it comes...
Then I get that far and it was cut from the episode, the first one. So,
right.
So there was another one called Deborah's Golf Day or something, or Golf with Deborah, where me, John Manfilati, Gio, maybe Tom McGowan, we got the call after the run through. The story wasn't fitting, so I commiserated with John Manfilati. Called me, that sucks. So I didn't feel that bad because they let a few of us go, but there was something not working out. So it was supposed to be. I had that like Friends. I did a table read, and they called me up. The scene wasn't working. He goes, "It's not like you're replaced with another actor." Actually,
well, go ahead.
A friend of mine, a comedian, was on what's it called, Friends, and he got replaced. And someone's asking me, "Do you remember your audition on ELR?" We I guess if you could watch this and rewind it, we just told that story. It turned out they were trying to get Ben Stiller. He wasn't sure. Then he goes, "Okay, I'll do it." So he was a template for Ben Stiller on Friends, my friend, and yeah, so it's.
That's heartbreaking. And I think just for Leo, who's asking that about the ELR thing, yeah, Fred was talking about at the beginning, this kind of cattle call, and he was saying now in a funny way, just like Ray did. And so, and by the way, 2-3 of the writers knew Fred from stand-up days. So there was an aware, so it wasn't like unknown guy comes in. Fred was known as a funny guy auditioning. And I will tell you, on Everyone's Raymond, this did happen. The getting fired. Jonathan Katz came in. We loved Jonathan Katz. He came in to read for a part on T-Ball. And there was nobody that didn't like him. So everyone's like, great, Jonathan Katz will do this part of an uptight parent, okay? after the table read, Phil, who loved Jonathan, was like, I don't. And by the way, sometimes it doesn't work out. Ray Romano got fired from News Radio for not being good in that role, and then ends up starring and winning an Emmy in this sitcom. You know what I mean? So that doesn't have anything to do necessarily with the person's ability to act. It just has to do with, does that person fit that role? And they have to make a split decision, because it's like a decision.
People have asked, did I audition as Gerard? No, it would have been a good find if they had auditioned. Wait, this guy. But yes, so like I said, the best things have happened when people have me in mind. You know, a lot of the parts I did, like Seinfeld, as Fred Yerkes, I didn't have to audition for. Larry knew me as a writer the year before. So it's hard to audition because the pressure's on that I should get this and everything. Yes.
And so, Fred, let's go back a little, because talk about what it was like writing on Seinfeld, because on Raymond, it was a very team effort, and Phil ran the room, and everything went through Phil, and he used all the writers, whatever was the funniest got into the show. And we went over every script. Everything was a team effort. So we wrote the first draft, we wrote the outline, we wrote the first draft, and then Phil would give the individual writer notes, and then we would all sit in the room. Phil was behind the computer, with the writer assistant, and then he would go completely line by line, and we would all be, as a team, going through, well, maybe if Cousin Gerard said this, okay, yeah, let's put that in. Seinfeld sounds like, in many ways, the opposite.
100% the opposite. Nothing like that. Basically, what happened is, my analogy is, it's like a homicide division, where we're all trying to solve murders, but our own murders. We go in our own offices, where you have to get a hold of Larry and Jerry and pitch a George, Kramer, Elaine, and Jerry story. And you can't do anything for it is approved. And there was no table. A table is, like you said, we sit around. On most shows like Raymond, they map out the season and arcs and stuff like that, and then help each other punch up our scripts. I was totally on my own, and I'll tell Tom off camera about some guy pretended to be my mentor. It's a long story. And I was like, I never was on staff. How does this work? Okay, everyone, these are your offices, Larry said. All right, try to find me and pitch me ideas. So everyone goes in their office. Huh? What? And so I was on my own. And one thing I learned as a writer, you try your ideas out on other people, and they would go, nah, try it out on the people that could say yes or no. Because I would try it out on some people, I'll tell you later, and they go, nah, that's not good. And then someone else, not that they stole it, but you can't guess what okay, so I'd be on my own, and then you finally get Jerry or Larry, and it's hard to get them once production starts, because they're either casting, on the floor, editing, rewriting. So you get your 4 storylines approved. And then you have to find Larry again, bring him in your office, and what's it called, the chalkboard, the dry erase thing?
Dry erase, yeah.
And show you, no, have Vanya come over there. And I remember Larry was yelling at me, where's your pencil? You're not going to remember this. Where's your pencil? And now that I think of it, he is right, because I hate when a waiter doesn't write down my order. Write it down. But I do. All right, have Banya come in right away. I wrote the Kenny Banya episode. And so then all right, start writing it up now. So you have the outline, you write it, and then they make their mind up. We're going to do it. All right, I'm doing it. All right, go on to the next one. They shut the door, and a lot of the stuff, so there's no one helping it. It's just Jerry and Larry. Shut the door, and actually, one of my storylines got totally thrown out. It wasn't mine, where George is obsessed about manure. So that they even changed names a lot. Like I wrote the one, Mendy's remained the name Mendy I liked, but they even changed names of characters. So then he was called Barry Feldman. I like the name.
Fred, you go out because this is 100% opposite of Raymond. So Larry comes in and is like, I do know this, that they would hand write their scripts. They wouldn't sit at a word processor and sit there and go, like on Raymond, everything was done in a word processor. And so Phil would go, go back up again. Okay, let's go through this, as we're going through the script. And you could all...
I'll tell you about a cut and act when we get to it. I'm going to go back to it, but one thing before I lose my train of thought, a lot of times when my lines were cut with Raymond, like people, they shoot long, or maybe they have big laughs. Tom can explain why they cut lots of scenes. But I found with Raymond, a bunch of times I was on, the first scene gets cut a lot. The cult, there was a scene I loved where it never showed, where I recruited Robert. I came, rang his bell, and it was a fun scene where I go, Robert, you don't look happy lately. It got cut. So I wonder if that was a true thing with Raymond. A lot of the first scenes got cut.
It was only, Fred, because I've talked about this, and we talked about a lot about in the first season, we had a lot of sports stars to try and get ratings. And so they would have stunt casting. Most people haven't seen those because we had to cut it for time. So in the cult, what Fred is talking about, it's hysterical. But Phil will come in. This is a very good problem to have. Phil will come in from the editing and go, we're 6 minutes over. 6 minutes over. It can only be 22 minutes. That's a whole quarter of another show. So then Phil has to go, okay, I'm going to cut the beginning scene of the cult because the audience can follow along, and we're all like, oh, it's so funny. But it's like, yeah, okay, but you have to deliver 22 minutes and 45 seconds to the second. So then you go, well, do you want to cut how about we have Fred Stoller call up Doris Roberts and say, hey, Doris, you have a lot less lines because Fred wanted to make sure that the beginning of the cult episode is in. So it's a no-brainer. And unfortunately, when you're watching it, we see the same thing also. We're like, it's so funny, it hurts us. But
you know what made me laugh on the cult? Another thing people ask me, do I really play the accordion? No. And one time, Lou Schneider was saying, Fred, move your fingers. And Ray, who's more neurotic than me, I could safely say that. He doesn't seem it. Was Fred moving his fingers? I heard he wasn't moving his fingers. It was an accordion with just air. So, no, I'm sorry, it's the bachelor party where
you come in.
Pretending I was playing the accordion, just walking back, and Chris Elliott turns to me and goes, you look like a monkey. Just walking around with an accordion. That always makes me laugh. But
yes.
Sorry for interrupting the flow about the writing process. I'm sorry. But
No, but getting back to Seinfeld, so then on Seinfeld, because it's got to be a lonely existence, because on Raymond, when you go in the writer's room, the script has to be good enough to go in the writer's room, and Phil would give notes before. But the script always got better. I don't care whose script it was. You would have the collective mind of everybody working together. And then every day we would watch the table read. We'd go, maybe a better line for Cousin Gerard here. Okay, let's think of this. Okay, boom, there's a better line for him. And so every single day it got better in a teamwork effort. And it felt like, and in a good way, Phil could rely on, just like, Fred, stand-up comedy, you're getting feedback from the audience. So every time you go up, it's like, let me adjust that joke, let me do this. So when you have a group of funny people who are going, maybe this, maybe that, you don't have, it takes some of the pressure off, because if 10 people think something's funny in the room, chances are it's funny. And then you have the rare thing in front of the audience where it doesn't get a laugh and you go out and tweak it.
Two things. First of all, yes, ideally, I would have learned a lot if I was really in on the process. People say, did you learn a lot writing on Seinfeld? It was so maddening that one time I stood outside Jerry and Larry's door for an hour waiting for it to open so I could pitch. And then these two guys, Alec Berg and Jeff Schaefer, they've gone on to amazing success. Very brazen, walked in right in front of me, pitched their idea. And then they shut the door again. All right, we've got to rewrite, and I was so exhausted from waiting an hour to try to pitch. I went in my office and napped. I would nap. I would go down to there was a place across the street and play pinball, walk around, because you couldn't do anything till your storylines were approved. One time I made a mistake. I said, is this a good idea? I thought it was a funny idea that Kramer does a one-man show called One Time My Uncle Hit Me. I don't know. That's funny. So I took Liberty, which was a big mistake, and all these guys said it was funny. Like, what the hell is that? I didn't tell you. Oh, no, I didn't approve that. So you could not do anything until your stories were approved. So you don't learn anything. Yes.
And it's so interesting because we did have an orderly way, though, of getting the story approved. So in the same parallel, but that's not what you're talking about. You're talking about because you're kind of stuck. You're in limbo.
Yes, yes. This is a funny story that one time Larry had a little dose of empathy. He goes, I see you. You're not as aggressive as these other guys. It's my Larry David impression. He goes, you got to be more assertive. You got to find me and throw an idea at me. I went, all right. And he told me, he goes, when I worked on Saturday Night Live, I see you're not part of the clique. My office used to be right by the elevator. I'd see all the other writers going to eat. They didn't include me. I go, all right. So then I said, okay, now that I have you, what about this idea? He goes, that's stupid. I go, all right, I did tell you, Freddie. I did tell you, but that's stupid. Come on. So it was very intimidating. But in defense of the Seinfeld method, they really weren't like punch-up-ish kind of show because it was so situational. They never really, like on shows I've been on, like Friends, they would do it, and Raymond too, they would do a tape for the audience, and then they would like have a timeout, and sometimes as long as a half hour, the writers would huddle, well, not literally huddle, their arms around each other,
yeah,
and punch it up.
Almost.
That almost never happened on Seinfeld. Because it was Seinfeld is one of the rare shows where it was pretty close from table read, except for editing out stuff, table read to shoot. Because, the Raymond Wright actors were amazing. And also the Seinfeld, where when I wrote my script, Jason Alexander and Kramer and Elaine could not hold a vague moment. There were things with big laughs, but it wasn't really a joke. So Seinfeld very rarely had like, we need a better joke, come on in. So
yeah, it's so situationally, and what you're talking about with Friends. So on Raymond, we would have the next joke ready. There was almost never a time when we go, uh-oh, this other joke didn't work. Maybe 1 in 10, maybe 1 in 20, one joke in the entire evening. And ours was so precisely worked out. Friends sometimes would have to rewrite an entire scene. That huddle that Fred is talking about, a scene wouldn't work, and so they would huddle and the audience would stay for 30 minutes. We would never do that. And on Seinfeld,
you're a warm-up guy, so you know you would see the thing, you would see how it worked.
Yeah. And so with Seinfeld, what Fred is talking about, and what I said before, by the way, Fred. I love Seinfeld. Ray and I always thought it was the coolest show. And Friends, we'd be like, that's a cool show. Even when we were season 2, we were by Friends, and we'd sneak onto the Friends stage. We're like, what a cool show. And of course, Seinfeld was the first show that it sounded like people talking like us. You know what I mean? It wasn't sitcom-y, and it was like, wow, these are real great things. So when I do bring up Seinfeld, sometimes people are like, I don't get Seinfeld, or I don't like Seinfeld. And I think that's a lot the international audience. It doesn't play.
Well, on Cameo, I'm on Cameo if anyone wants to shout out, but I do get people from Ireland, Australia, England, and a fair amount of Raymond, but some Seinfeld.
Yeah. Someone's writing ELR seem to be more improv than Seinfeld or Friends. No, almost no improv on ELR.
I had one. Yes, it was. You can't really improv on Raymond, and especially a guest star. Usually you have what's called a script supervisor that runs to you if you said okay instead of all right, like
yes,
things. But I think I slipped in I have 2 funny stories. Well, one of them is funnier, where Cousin Gerard, I'm not supposed to move my back. and I think I said, I think I have sciatica. I came up with some ailment. They gave me a liberty, but usually you had to really do as told. So on the Cult, there was a scene where I come in and say, I need a ride. My car got towed, and then I did the Gerard smile. and Raymond goes, "Did you take a liberty?" Yeah, I threw that in. Yeah, it was like, "Were you bad? Were you allowed? Did you put that on your own?" Let me explain one thing about that. It wasn't so much on Raymond, but as a guest star actor, there's another pressure where, like in movies, a director, it's his vision. He's the king, like, Scorsese, Coppola. Sitcom guest star acting is very maddening because you'll get a note from, like, I was on Friends from Matt LeBlanc. He told me, let's do sitcom-y. I want to go, this is Joey and Friends. Then you'll get something from the director, but it's really the network run-throughs. It's the showrunner who has the say. So you're kind of in a weird thing. Like, I remember I did a few episodes of this show called Raising Dad with Bob Saget. Bob Saget's, I don't know, you've met him, one of the nicest guys. But he was an executive producer. So right before the network run through, he goes, "Fred, I'm changing this line to this." So I didn't want to say no to Saget, but it looked like on the run through, I'm taking a liberty as the guest star to do a whole different joke. And I got no laughs. And sometimes I've had it, I have to say, with some sitcom directors, maybe they feel emasculated, that they're not really the king like a movie. So they'll kind of bully the guest star guys and be a little, "Did you hear that, Fred?" During the I have a Norm Macdonald who's crazy, but a great story where they had a run through, and one of the actors was playing it too broad, and so Bruce Helford said, "We're firing him. He's too broad," and it was because the director told him, and Norm stood and goes, "You told him that." So the director was going on, "Yeah, he's so broad." So it is kind of, I'm saying, all the different takes you get and notes.
Yeah, and I think what Fred's talking about, the showrunner is ultimately the king of the show, and on a movie, the director, there is no one can even come close to the authority of the director. And
right.
More often than not, if you're on a movie, they would go, how did a writer get on? Who let a writer on the set of this movie? You're really 9 tiers down. Whereas on the sitcom, it is, and I do know that specifically on Everybody Loves Raymond, Phil would come down for a run through, and Phil would, Phil was brilliant at it, as you saw. Phil's notes were brilliant, and he would do so sometimes. And I think that's a trusting environment. Fred, what we're talking about on Raymond, at least, because it's not like they're iron-fisted and going, "Fred, don't even try and be funny on your own. Don't you dare." It's just that in the normal process, even for the regular cast, when you've written a script, you at least want to see it once the way it was written. So Phil will say, if it was the case, and it's not with Fred, it's always a bad example, but if one of the regular cast members said the line completely different, Phil would say, "Can we just see it how we wrote it once? And I know you don't think it's a good joke, but let us at least, because we worked on that joke for 2 months."
Yeah.
So it was a very specific thing. So when Ray is saying to Fred, did you ad lib? Like Ray knows the script inside and out because Ray's in the writer's room every single moment. So if Fred gets a giant laugh with his smile, Ray's not angry. Ray just basically is going, "Oh, that's awesome. That's comedy gold that we didn't write." And so we look better because unless Fred goes on someone's Instagram Live and takes credit for it, we look good. We look good. And so it's not, I don't want it to sound like, no, don't try and use your natural comedic talent, Fred, to get a laugh. And so what Fred's saying is exactly these type of things are so precise, because not only another reason Fred can't just start making up lines is the other actors are going to go, when is he stopping? Because I have a line after his, so there's just a normal thing. I'm going to read Go ahead, Fred.
Up the King of Queens. I got cast on it because I was at the Raymond 100th episode party, and I knew Kevin James peripherally. Well, he was on Raymond. He was just, he had big parts, but I'd see him in the scenes when there was like a wedding, Ray's wedding. And I saw him. I said, "Hey, Kevin, I'm auditioning tomorrow for a voiceover for your show." He goes, "No, no, you're not." He goes, "You got it. You don't have to audition." So he said, "Don't make Fred audition." And I got the Quickie Burger guy. "Please pull your car forward." So that was very nice of Kevin to do that.
Yeah, Kevin was great. I'm going to read a few. I'm going to read a few comments before they get away, Fred, because when this gets replayed, all the comments go away, and so I love, the beauty of this compared to a normal podcast is we can interact with the audience. Yeah. ELR is universal. Sorry, Gerard should have been on holiday episodes. I mean, we can only include him on so many things. And let me see. I'm loving ELR again. Great. Leo asked, "Were you at the finale as a just because you were on the show so many times?" And I don't remember you being at the finale. Yeah. And the problem with the finale was it was so in demand that the spouses of people that worked on the show weren't even allowed to attend because the live audience, and here's the weirdest thing, the live audience comprised a lot of other people, like the guys that created your character, Mike Hockham and Jason Gellis, at that point had left the show and worked on David Letterman. But they were invited to the show, but they had to sit in the stands like a regular, and I think Andy Kindler and his wife were in the a lot of we had no room is the short answer. And if we invited Fred and everybody else, there'd been 900 people. And so it was a very limited audience, unfortunately. Let me see. You were funny on King of Queens. Yes. Great.
I did. I had for my cameos a fake accordion. This is funny. I did a cameo for someone. That's an app where you do shout outs.
Let me just, because you're on there. So for those of you that have never heard of it, Cameo is this great thing. And I will say this, being friends with Ray before he was famous and then when he became famous. A lot of times, especially after the iPhone was invented, people would say, "Tom, can you ask Ray to wish my Aunt Eileen a birthday gift?" And then so Ray, birthday wish. So then on my iPhone, I'd go, "Ray, do you mind doing this for my friend?" Like, okay, "Hey, happy birthday to whatever," and send it. So what Cameo allows the public to do is to have actors, musicians, anybody who's doing it, and there's giants, there's the whole spectrum of show business to say, "Listen." What's that?
Brad is on it now.
Brad Garrett? Mm-hmm. Oh, maybe he'll talk to me through Cameo. Yeah. So anyway, so you can go to Cameo, you can go to the app real succinctly, and you could say, "Fred Stoller, I want you to play an accordion and sing happy birthday to my, my cousin," or whatever, or and so that's what he's talking about, Cameo.
So I did one pretending I had Smoke on the Water to the side, dun, 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 to announce someone's wedding. They said, "We love you. We want to fly you to England to play at our wedding." And then I'm thinking, could I learn in 6 months to play the accordion? And I thought, maybe I could play a tape. I could fake it. Go, "Fred, how desperate are you? Just for a trip to England and make some money? Like I'm going to learn to play the accordion."
Anyway, when do you leave, Fred? Yeah, I guess COVID took care of that. I'm just scrolling through these great. Oh, by the way, you are a very loved cast member. Now, do you run into any of the cast members? They're asking you pre-COVID, let's say, because I will answer I will answer for you. I see the cast members occasionally, but everybody, people live here. They live their lives. So, where go ahead.
I went to Brad. There's a place called The Grove. It's an outdoor mall. He, actually twice. And he made me laugh so much. He's like, I don't know if the younger people remember Don Rickles, but like this guy cracking me up, just the thing I wrote about in my book is that you're the guest star guy, and I'm glad to be there. But Brad is ribbing Ray about how rich he is, and I want to go, hey Brad, what do you got? 300,000 an episode, and then and the joke I make is the difference between the cousin and the brother is $88 million. But he would always go, hey, like anything, like the alarm went off. Ray hurt his ankle. Would you fall on your wallet? So he's always doing stuff, and he is the sweetest guy. I mean, you think like one time. I hope I'm not getting controversial. Is sometimes they misunderstand him because there was a great guy. I forgot his name. A black guy was the prop guy, and
Don on our show. You mean on Don? Yeah, Don Rosemond.
Because let's have a bit for Don. He's a good stud, and he got upset, but. He's so sweet on Twitter. He gets mad at racism, but it's his old shtick. Like he's not. He's so sweet. He gets
he is the
Yes.
Brad. So I'll say Brad, just in case there's any misinterpretation. Brad is the nicest, most open-minded, sweetest human being on the planet, and so his shtick is like Don Rickles. So if you didn't know Brad as a human being, you might be like, wow, does he hate these people and these people? No, not only is he not, he's the most welcoming, open-minded guy, very liberal minded, etc. So
my first TV thing was 1984, and I was on Star Search. I won. Then he beat me the second round. He went on to win the whole thing. And then I went to Cantor's, and he was there. So I know Brad, his first time coming to New York, and he's I saw him and Ray on Family Feud a few months ago, and it's still that shtick. Hey, I held my weight, Ray, and he's great. He's great.
Yeah, Brad is. So I went to that taping of Family Feud, and Brad is one of the funniest human beings on the planet, and you don't know what's going to come out of his mouth. And so even when he was guesting on here with me, there's all the ribbing and all the stuff. And Fred, I don't know if you saw the table read that they did for the Multiple Myeloma Foundation, the Peter Boyle charity. But
did he make fun of that?
Well, what people didn't see is when I hosted the Q&A, and it was a table read on a Zoom with high def cameras, and they pre-did it and all that stuff. And by the way, I'm sure if they do it again, you will get a call. Eventually, it's just that they have to figure out who they can have on the show, and only Stefania was the only one that they had because she was so annoying. But Brad spent about 5 minutes making fun of me, which they cut out. But I'm sitting there, and of course, Patty's waiting, everyone's waiting, and he's just reeling off insult.
When Jiminy Glick came, and that was very exciting to see Jiminy Glick interview the guys.
Yeah, what he's talking about is Martin Short, and I put up a picture. Martin Short, who plays a character called Jiminy Glick, which I want to talk about this.
Genius.
Do you know he based that on a real live person? And I just saw that person interviewing, and it's literally like he's just doing a dead-on impression. And Martin Short is such a genius that he elevates it. But this guy would go, he did segues, this interviewer, that were just astounding. He'd go, "Now, Fred," it sounded exactly like him. All right, Fred, because you are going to have to come back because we only have about 9 minutes left. The table read. Thanks, Paula. Great. Table read was great, says Paula, one of our big fans. Fred, do you get out and do stand-up ever, is the question?
Even before actually, the last time I did it, I bumped into Ray. It was Steve Scroven has this charity. I kind of got burnt. You can't dabble. You got to live that life, before the pandemic. So I'm doing actually a Zoom show, if anyone's interested, this Wednesday. Thursday. With Q&A, I do my act. So I've been doing some Zoom shows, but I got sick of the road. But the last time I did my act, Ray was there. He did his, I didn't know till Family Feud how tall his son was, so he did a bit about it. So do you remember, well, of course you remember, at every, what's it called?
Rap party?
not rap party, you know, when they come out and bow, curtain
Oh,
call.
every curtain call.
He would hold the hand of one of his twins, would come out with him, Ray.
Yes, very endearing. And the twins just had a birthday last week, and I posted a couple of pictures, and the kids are holding on to Ray's leg.
Yeah.
Beyond adorable. So, Fred, there's two things of yours. There's My Seinfeld Year, right? And then maybe we'll have you back. My Seinfeld Year was a big hit on you put it on
Oak Street side, a bad tripod or a wobbly table. Yes, that was called a Kindle single. There it is. It was they were really hot for a while. These singles, they're not quite a buck more than a magazine article, and it was about my very dizzying year. I thought it was like my favorite year, like what it's like. That was like what it was like being on the big show. Sid Caesar. This is what it was like, a bewildered guy writing on the biggest show, but it was crazy. So it did really well. It's still up there. It's only $1.99. It's this mini book you download, and that led to getting my book published. Maybe we'll have you back.
Which is a great, for those of you watching that are actors or want to be actors. Or
Ray wrote the forward.
Yeah. It's a great account, and I think, Fred, if you could snap your fingers and go back in time and prepare the younger Fred Stoller for what's ahead, and knowing the rejection
Yes. You know, it's funny when people say, should I get into acting or writing? Oh, my God. But when you're young, you don't think of it. You're just in that world. You know what I mean? You don't think how maddening this is, this crazy world. But yes, I mean, I'm still getting rejected, and it's just but you know, my analogy is like the circus came to town, and I in the circus for life. You know, it's weird because I got into showbiz being a misfit, thinking I'd be with other misfits like me, but there's a lot of regular people, you know, so I'm like a misfit in show business. But one thing that Ray said in the forward, which is true, and the same thing happened with Matt LeBlanc. Like at the time I was doing a lot of guest stars, and I'm not anymore. I'm older, and TV's different. I miss it. Like sitcoms, every part, like Raymond, every 2-line part, Raymond and Seinfeld, Friends was like, even a 3-line part was funny. Raymond, where's the butter? You took the bread. Now it's so real. Like the guest star guy has to be a prop. You can't be funny. It's like this realness where it's almost like the old days of Barney Miller. But I remember one day they were getting a lot of notes after a run through, and Ray says to me, "Do you get a lot of notes on other shows?" So I was the template for what it's like, because Ray, you know, a gazillionaire, but he was only did Raymond and 1 or 2 other things. So
you were the old veteran. You're the old veteran. You had much wider depth of experience.
Right.
And
yeah. So I remember when I was on Friends, I said to Matt LeBlanc, you know, the craft service lady is so nice here. I was on Dharma and Greg last week. They weren't so nice. He goes, man, what show have you not been on? So Matt LeBlanc, right, taking $1 million an episode going, this guy's the life. So,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, you can't, I mean, it is true. It's, you know, Ray was on stand-up circuit. He did Carson. He did Letterman. And some smaller stand-up shows, and then he's on Ever Loves Raymond, and that's his experience for 9 years. And so, you know, you're out there in the trenches and auditioning and getting the getting the experience under your belt. So, Fred, are there any fond memories? Somebody wrote, "If I have a fond memory of you," and I just think, you know, when we would watch you in the run-through, and you would come up with just that smile. You can't write your smile. You know what I mean? You can't write your comedic timing. Also, is so perfect. So, you know, there was no having to say, you know, Fred, you got to pause, and you know what I mean? It was like you're such a.
I didn't know Tom till Raymond, and it took me a while to realize you're for 9 years with a bunch of snappy guys like. what's his name?
Lou
Lou.
Schneider.
One time I'm with you. I was at Phil at the Friars Club. It was something, not maybe the Friars Club or something. Phil's kid, his wife got a bar mitzvah, and you, hey, nice of you to shave, Fred. But I didn't realize that's your sense of humor. Oh my God! And I ran home and shaved. So I mean,
Oh, I feel bad. Fred, I feel bad now. It was Monica's bat mitzvah.
yes.
It was Monica's bat mitzvah.
I didn't. I knew that. I knew you're a great guy, but I didn't. You would go, hey, look at this guy, and I was freaked out, but I didn't know that's the sense of humor of the writers, and I felt, oh my God, so I was intimidated by you thinking you're like judging me, and I ran home and shaved.
Oh, no. I feel terrible. Fred, I'm going to have to write you an apology. Yeah, that you know what's funny is even for me, because look, you grew up around you were around comedians, and there's an insulting, it's the way you trade barbs. And so if you were in the banking business and someone came in and said, hey, nice shirt, why don't you'd be like, what? Nice shirt? Like, what is this guy doing? So I think even I want to say I saw it. I mean, this happened on Seinfeld, but I think I watched a video about it where Larry David said Jerry will say something about your shirt to a writer.
Well, no. It was me where I would pitch to them. There'd be a pause, and Larry would go, how does someone like you buy a shirt? I can't picture you functioning. Like they're not even reacting to my pitch. But Jerry would look at me and go, you always hit the same mark every time you're in the office and pitch. So it's like not even about that. I just moved to LA in '88. I bump into Jerry at Cantor's Deli, famous place. And he says to someone, this is me in a funhouse mirror. So, that's what comedians do. And I remember, I know we're going over, but I remember, I think part of the Gerard episode was, there was truth to Ray didn't like that what he saw in himself bothered him about what he saw in me. So I think that they kind of came up with it based on, like Ray is so apologetic. Like he goes, there was a joke I was going to do about you. It was at Phil's Friar's 40th birthday, and I go, well, you could say it. He goes, Fred Stoller is me with AIDS. You could have said that. So Ray is so neurotic. I got a funny story. Well, it's a short one. That working on the Cousin Gerard in the basement, they came up with the thing on the spot. Writers where I was scared there was a marker out, and I go, there's so enough fumes here, I'm getting high. And then they said at the end, Ray, why don't you sniff it? And like you needed it because you couldn't deal with me. And then he goes, I'm afraid. I'm funny. I sound like him already. I'm afraid kids are gonna get high sniffing markers because they saw it here and they'll overdose. And they had to reassure him, no one is going to die from sniffing a marker because they saw it on Everybody Loves Raymond. I mean, Scrovan told me funny stories of things he was neurotic about, that they did an episode that they made fun of CW Post or Hofstra. What if an alumni comes and kills me? Now it's the same Larry David voice. But yes, I was there when they said, Ray, sniff it at the end. Oh, all right. Yes. So
yeah, it's a very endearing quality that Ray has in real life, which is he never drank coffee. And so there's a thing in the script where it says Ray comes in and drink coffee, and Ray comes into the writer's room season 2, and he goes, Phil, I don't drink coffee. And Phil's like, well, just pretend you're drinking coffee, Ray. Like that. Oh, I love it. Yeah, so Ray goes, eventually I guess I have to act. That pretending to drink coffee is the big thing. Fred, what is your cat's name? Because we need a little bit of sensitivity now.
Luna. And
hello, Luna.
And every time I do a cameo, if the cat's around here, I go, what does a cat say? A talking cat? Yeah, now it's the same. Oh, one thing, when I sign stuff, they want, how do you spell now? N-E-O-U-W, but she's a very good cat.
Wow.
Cat, Luna. Yes.
I love cats. Now, Fred, I absolutely do. Sorry, Fred. So as I predicted, we're out of time. So
can I tell one last story?
Yeah, go ahead. But I'm going to have you back again, please.
Okay. So I was helping out a place called the Amanda Foundation that helps rescue dogs and cats. So I had a Raymond script, and they were going to auction it off. So Peter Ball, so sweet, he goes, "This is for kitties? Of course I'll sign it, kitties." And then Ray goes, "Why am I signing this? You're not selling this on eBay." So I go, "No, Ray, it's a charity." So yeah, I had to reassure him.
Well,
No, it's not for me to make money. I'm helping charity.
Yeah, that was kind of his standing joke whenever he signed anything. He's like, "Hello, eBay."
Oh, okay. I thought he was really suspicious.
No. No, he would always say that when people, and sometimes, and I don't know how this happened, Fred, when Ray and I would fly, we'd get off the plane and there'd be 5 guys there with pictures.
For McDonald's for a while, they get tips. Airline people tip off and get paid from the autograph people, and they sell it. Yes.
That's such an inside scoop because Ray would go, we'd land in Miami, and all of a sudden there's 5 people standing there with 100 pictures of Ray. Yeah, giant stack. And Ray would go, "Hello, eBay," because these aren't fans who look, and Ray felt bad because usually a fan is genuine and sincere, and it's like, "Can I sign?" And these guys were just like, boom, boom. And they would have Ray stand there all day signing those things. And I think, it's funny. This is a bizarre, it's going to sound like a not true story because of the person that I'm talking about. But I saw Cary Grant speaking live in Connecticut. He was doing a tour, and it was called like An Evening with Cary Grant. And someone said, "Mr. Grant, why don't you sign autographs?" And he said, "I just feel like, life is so short, and I'm sitting there signing autographs. And the first person I signed for is already home in bed, and I'm still standing there signing autographs, So I think it's a mystery to us. Like, wow, someone at the airlines is tipping off somebody who tips off the other paparazzi people. And then
I know a paparazzi. He told me, I go, "How did they?" Me and Norm, I'd open for Norm. They'd have picture. He was on Family Guy, one of his characters. They had the chicken guy, Sanders pictures. How do they have this ready? How do they know that people in the airline are getting extra money from people?
That's so weird, right? It's so creepy that on the inside. Now, there's another secret about paparazzi is sometimes when they're trying to get a buzz, they'll say, Paris Hilton's people will call the paparazzi and say, "I'm going to be at this restaurant." And the general public doesn't know that happens. So they'll be like, "Oh, yeah, Paris might be eating at the restaurant at Rodeo and Melrose." And all of a sudden they're like, "Wow." All right, Fred, I will see. Maybe you can come back in a month or 2, if not sooner.
Rerun. So this stays on Instagram. So people.
This will be on Instagram forever until Instagram collapses and another thing takes over. But yes, and I'll post some pictures and please share anything on your social media. You have your book, which is Maybe We'll Have You Back. You have your Seinfeld thing, My Seinfeld Year, and then
if you follow me on Instagram, or you could look at me, there's a link tree in my bio where you can see my show Thursday. It's only $5, but it's going to be a Zoom where we all interact.
I love it. Fred, what a delight. I'm sorry that I insulted your shaving 15 years ago.
You're always so generous with, and also let me ask again, if you have any photos of Gerard, I already have that one from the book, please. You're always generous. You came to my movie, Fred and Vinny, and took great pictures. So, no, you're a great guy.
Yeah. Fred and Vinny. Fred is in a movie that Steve Scrovan wrote and directed, or just directed?
He directed it, yes.
Right. So I went to the filming of that. That's available. And so, yeah, honestly, Fred, I have 30,000 photos. I'm slowly scanning them. So I probably have 1,500 more pictures of you that you haven't seen. And so, yeah.
It'll be fun.
I'll share them as I come across. And I do know, Golfing with Deborah, there is a scene there. I do have a photo of you in that beginning that pops into my head when Phil's giving notes.
If you could get this is so obscure. it got taken down on the internet. But there was that Now scene in Russian with Russian Gerard and Russian Ray. If you could ever, I don't know, figure out how, I'd love to see the Russian Gerard scene. Or the, I'm sure there's an Israeli Gerard scene and a Indian. So that would be fun to see.
Oh, yeah. I'll keep an ear out for it. I don't even know. All right. Awesome. So a lot of compliments for you I'm reading because they're going to go away, unfortunately. But a lot of that you're better looking in person on this, complimenting you. So maybe the Gerard, other language Gerards are getting a lot of women dates or any dates at all. All right. Thank you so much, Fred. I'll see you again very soon, and I'll email you pictures as I find them. All right. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.